All right, I'm starting the recording now and we'll get started. So welcome again. So I'm going to be hosting the meeting today. Like I said, I'm the Assistant Director of Field Education. Unfortunately, Bonnie is ill, so she will not be with us today. She sends her apologies. She is the Director of Field Education, and Elizabeth is with us as well today, and she is our graduate assistant, so she helps us with an awful lot of things. So we absolutely work as a team. So if you ever have any questions, issues, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to any of the three of us and we'll be happy to. So the first thing that we want to, we're going to do a little advertisement. Want to make sure that you are aware, for those of you that may not be, is we do now have an online addiction studies certification, and it's a postmaster certificate. So if this is an area you're interested in getting more information about, or if you're interested in prepping for the LCAC, things like that, that's what this program is designed to do. So if you're interested in this, please reach out to Dr. Jay Dickerson. He is the director of our MSW program, and he also runs OASIS. So if you're interested in that or have colleagues that are, you can find more information here at the link, or you can also email Dr. Dickerson. So one of the primary things we need to start with is, well, why are we here today? Why are we doing this? We want to, we hope that this is important information and will help to relieve some stress and clarify some expectations for when you're going in to supervise a student in internship. So of course, our mission in field education is to turn students into professionals and have their focus be on the acquisition of knowledge to the application of knowledge. So this is a really exciting time to be able to watch students actually put what they've learned into practice. So with field, students are given the opportunity to apply that social work knowledge and skills that they have obtained in the classroom into real life situations. And when they complete field, we get to work with seniors. So that's really exciting too, that they become our colleagues in May. And so that they're ready to go and walk out and be in the profession and be our colleagues. So the agency field supervisor, so all of you, you help us to assist the students in mastering those competencies and being able to put those into practice, to bring it out of the classroom and into the community. You really are helping them learn how to be social workers. And this involves some creative learning opportunities for the students to integrate that theory into practice. So as far as our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about how the placement process works so that you're aware of that, who all of the players are and what their roles are. We also want you to be aware of our CSWE competencies and practice behaviors, because that is what the student is trying to accomplish at your organization. We'll go over the student learning plan that captures those competencies. We'll also go over, hopefully this won't happen, but we'll also go over if problems are to arise, what to do and how to address them. And then of course, frequently asked questions. So the first step in the process, this is for the generalist students. The clinical students have a little bit different process, and we'll talk about that here shortly. So our generalist students are all of our BSWs, fall and spring, and our MSWs that do internship in the summer. So the first thing that we do, now we are, full transparency, we are in the process of transitioning from all paper format to an electronic format. And we are right smack dab in the middle of that. So some of this will be a little bit different this year and into the future, but the concepts are still the same. So the first thing that we do is reach out to all of you to see, are you interested in having interns? Do you have spots this year? Do you want to have interns coming up? Students are then provided with a list of those agencies that we have an agreement with and that do want interns for the following year. Students review that list and then they rank their top interests for us of 4 agencies, and we place students based on those interests. Now, the MSW students, our clinical students, the process is similar. They go through the same thing and they rank the agencies that they want, but then there's an additional step as well. Clinical is more competitive and it's so specialized that there are fewer options. And so in addition to ranking the agencies, we also ask them to rank their populations of interest. So if for some reason one of those 4 agencies doesn't work for them, then we can match them up to an agency that wants an intern that matches up with their population of interest. So after they've put their preferences to us and that we have the list and all of that, we authorize them to contact an agency. So please be aware that students are not allowed to contact you without our authorization. So you shouldn't be getting contact from a student out of the blue. You should know from us first that a student is coming your way and we have gotten approval from you and that they have gotten approval to reach out to you. Then they go through an interview process just like you would with a new employee. If the interview goes well, you want them, they want to intern with you, paperwork is filled out, and the process is complete. Then closer to the intern starting, usually a few weeks to a month before that start date, that's when you start getting those details together. What's the schedule going to be? What's their first date of starting? And of course, if there's any paperwork, orientations, anything like that that needs to occur before they start, that's when you can kind of iron those things out. Now, we're at a time before the fall semester that the students should be doing that. So if you haven't heard from your students, please let us know. We've told them that and encouraged them to reach out. Hopefully they're doing that, but if not, please let us know and we'll help to nudge that along as well. All right, so who's who? We've got 3 entities here of the agencies, the students, and the university. So the agencies are here on this side where all of you are. This is where the agency field instructor, or sometimes they're called the agency supervisor, are. And some agencies utilize task instructors and supervisors as well. Of course, the students are here in the middle, and then the university is on this side. Our faculty field liaisons are our seminar instructors. So they teach the seminar portion of field, but then they also are that bridge between the university and the agency. So just some definitions on what the expectations are and how it's defined to be a generalist student. That generalist practice, of course, is broadly defined. It is the foundation, though, of our practice, of our field, of our profession. And so it really is designed to capture those CSWE competencies that we'll touch on here shortly. So some of those generalist practice roles that we see out in the community are, of course, case manager, advocate, broker, educator, community organizer, group worker, and individual counselor. To supervise a generalist student, we prefer an LBSW, an LSW, or an LCSW. Now for MSW clinical students, they have a more specialized practice. They have that focus on clinical. So this does have to be an advanced clinical placement, and they get agency-based opportunities for that clinical practice. The focus is to provide students, again, with those CSWE competencies, but not just those generalist basic foundational policies and competencies. We move them into those clinical activities. The clinical practicum is advanced. It reflects the special knowledge, skills, and values of that clinical practitioner. Of course, there is going to be a mix of generalist and clinical activities in an MSW clinical placement, but that emphasis is on gaining those therapeutic skills. The supervisor here must be an LCSW because of the clinical nature of our program. So the students' responsibilities are that they need to reflect on the tasks that they've had during the week. They need to explore any conflictual feelings that will come up. They need to exercise critical thinking. They need to focus on that learning plan and accomplishing those CSWE competencies. They need to master that code of ethics and work within that code. They need to be open to feedback. They're in a learning curve right now and they don't know everything yet. They need to set a mutually agreed upon schedule and stick to it. None of this like, yeah, maybe I'll be on Wednesday this week, maybe I won't. You need to come into a bit of a contract with them about these are the days you're going to be here and these are the tasks that you're going to do. They also help to facilitate communication between the agency and the university. So they're that link between those two. So I want to introduce you to our seminar instructors, who are also our field liaisons. On the generalist side, we have Mr. James Aiken, Miss Janice Loptalian, Miss Phyllis Stone, myself, and Miss Heather Woods. And then the clinical instructors are Dr. Michelle Blake, Dr. Kathy Uppers, Miss Patty Lear, and Dr. Maria Paterny-Pease. So even though we're presenting as myself, Bonnie, and Elizabeth as the field team today, this is the absolute extension of our field team. And then of course that goes to all of you as well. So part of the responsibilities of that field liaison and that seminar instructor are included here. So of course they conduct the class. The class, there are some traditional elements. They have homework and all that fun stuff. But really the overarching goal here is to connect and process their academic learning with what they are seeing and experiencing in the field. The focus is on the personal growth of the student, those strengths and challenges, to provide feedback to the student, to of course work within the professional standards of social work as well as the NASW Code of Ethics. Part of their responsibility is to assure that the student is meeting those core competencies and that they are fulfilling the needs on their learning plan. They also meet with the student and the agency to do a midterm and final. And midterm and final are where we can evaluate that SLP, that learning plan, to see, is the student moving forward? Are they learning at the pace they need to? Are they meeting those competencies? And they're there to communicate with the student as well as the agency as well. So with your role, with the agency's role, you guys are responsible for the student's educational experience as well. Of course, assuring that they are meeting those CSWE competencies and are getting everything done on their learning plan. Be part of that communication loop again. Meeting with the student and the faculty liaison at midterm and final, assuring and evaluating that SLP. You also will be responsible for reviewing and signing off on their timesheets each week. Their timesheets will include, of course, the hours that they were there, but their activities as well as their supervision. So your main role here, and the most important thing, is to provide them with that formal supervision. Now, CSWE requires that be a minimum of 1 hour a week. And that supervision really should focus on that personal growth again of the student, those strengths as well as challenges, giving them that constructive, honest feedback, direct, immediate feedback, and to make sure that they're working within those professional standards as well as ethics. Now, of course, we have that structured formal supervision time that's a minimum of 1 hour a week. But the students are there a lot more than 1 hour, so they may need some checking in time between those formal sessions. So we do encourage you to please look for those teachable moments and, that just immediate feedback piece, because students need that and they really flourish in that environment. So here's a look at the timesheets. So again, we are transitioning to an electronic format this year. The program that we're using is called Tavera. So you may hear, that's a new word in your vocabulary. You may hear that quite often, and you'll be getting emails from them as well. So instead of the paper sheets that we've done previously, the student will go into Tavera and they will fill in their hours and activities. It looks similar to this, won't look exactly like that, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a visual. The student is responsible for filling this out. They go in each week, dates, times, activities, etc. They also have to capture their supervision here, just like we used to do on the paper sheets. So it is the student's responsibility to fill this out, but you will sign off on this to approve those hours and that supervision. So how this will happen, so with Tavera, I don't want to panic you and make you feel like, oh my gosh, we have to learn this new program and all of that. One really nice thing about Tavera is anytime you have to do anything in there, they send you an email. And you can do it straight from the email. You don't have to go into Tavera, you don't have to do anything like that. They send you an email and say, student A has sent you an email, they need approval on their timesheet. You click on it, you review it. If you approve it, you do your electronic signature and you send it back. Then it goes to their instructor and to the student for their signatures as well. So we really are hoping this will be an easy transition. Anything that's new is challenging, but we do hope that that it will make things easier in the long run. There's also a link I've included down here that has some tutorials in it. It actually has a tutorial of the timesheets as well as the evaluations. But we will be sending you an email either later today, and we appreciate that, Heather. It is really easy to use. We hope that you feel that way too. But if there are any issues that come up, absolutely let us know. And we've been working really closely this summer with the Tavera team to get all of this set up. And their team is really amazing too. So, you know, we may not know the answers right away because it's new to us as well, but the Tavera folks will, and they've been really amazing and really quick. So yes, hopefully it will be a simple process. So I appreciate the support with that. So thank you. Later today or tomorrow, you will be getting a follow-up email from us, and it'll include a lot of things, but one of the things it'll include are the links to these tutorials, so that if you get one of those emails during the semester and you're like, oh, I forgot how to do this, or, you know, I don't know, then you can go back and look at that link and follow through, or of course, reach out to us. So some agencies utilize a task supervisor or instructor as well. Jennifer, that's okay. Do what you need to do. We're recording today, so if anybody needs to go back and review this later, we absolutely can do that. So a task supervisor is an optional role, but sometimes it can be very valuable though. Sometimes what we find is the official supervisor, maybe there's someone else in the agency that doesn't have the same credentials or can't be the direct supervisor, but may still have a lot of value for the student. Maybe they work with a totally different population, or the job that they do intersects with the job that the supervisor does, or something like that. It is completely appropriate to utilize that person. As long as it's a value to the student, it's a value to the agency, it's a value to the learning process. And of course, as long as communication is happening with that as well, because ultimately the official supervisor has to do all the signing off and the supervision and that type of thing. And if they're not aware of what the student is doing with the task supervisor, they won't be able to effectively evaluate the student. All right, so a couple of notes about CSWE. We are at USI, our BSW program and our MSW program are accredited, and the accrediting body is called Council on Social Work Education. So you'll hear us throw CSWE around a lot, but it's very important, so that's why we talk about it so much. So what CSWE does is they tell us that a social worker needs to have X, Y, and Z competencies to be able to graduate, and for us to be able to say, yes, you can go and be a professional social worker out in the field. So how we have them demonstrate that in field is they turn those competencies into behaviors. So to stay current, CSWE does update this process every 7 years. And 2022 was the year to update. So they have officially released those standards, but universities have a transition period to switch over to those. So USI actually won't be fully transitioning to those until summer of 2023. So we'll be having a different conversation next year. They haven't changed drastically, and they've changed for the positive, but they will be a little bit different next year. But as of right now, we're going to stick with those 2015 standards that we've had. And like I said, we'll transition next year to those new standards. Field is the signature pedagogy of social work education. So really what that means, that is where the rubber meets the road. This is the most important class and task of their social work education. So it's really important that they really do know these competencies and grab onto these competencies and that they do them well. So just to run through what those are, demonstrating ethical and professional behavior, engaging in diversity and difference, advancing human rights for justice, for overall justice, engaging in practice-informed research and research-informed practice, engaging in policy practice. And then these last four all specifically have to do with individuals, families, groups, organizations, and communities. So engaging with those entities, doing assessments, interventions, and evaluating practice with all of those entities. And if you're interested in seeing the full list of those and all the explanation, there is the link here for CSWE's competencies at the bottom. Okay, so making those competencies into actual things though. You know, you read those and they seem very broad and philosophical, and so we need students to move that into activity, into action, into behavior. And so this is a little bit of a screenshot that we can show you as far as what the student learning plan is going to look like this year. So how we capture all of this is through their SLP, through their student learning plan. And again, we're moving to Tavera for this. So we're moving away from that fillable PDF that we used in the past to this Tavera format. Now, it is the student's responsibility to fill this out. So I just want you to see what it looks like. So they do need to fill it out. It's one of their homework assignments. They need to, you know, the whole year. This is their guide, you know, through internship. However, they probably will consult you on it. Now, a student shouldn't walk up to you with a blank one and say, oh, hey, let's fill this out. They should do it. It is their responsibility, but they may ask for your feedback. And ultimately, you as their agency supervisor, and then myself or whoever their faculty liaison is, does have to sign off on it. So it really is important to look at, none of these should look exactly the same, because an intern that is at, say, you know, a homeless shelter, or an intern that is at a childcare facility, it should be very specific to the agency. It should be very specific to the population. So they should look a little bit different. So like I said, they may consult with you on this. And then once this SLP is complete, it'll be like the timesheets that, again, you'll get an email saying it's time to sign off on something. You'll go in, you'll click on it, you'll review it, you'll sign off on it, and then it gets sent to the instructor as well as the student for signatures. So very similar to our paper process, it's just electronic now. So a few words about turning those competencies into actual behaviors. Yes, good question, Heather. So one of the things that is so important about the SLP is that it is a living document, and we want it to stay a living document. Because sometimes what happens is we write this up in August or September, whenever it is, then we get to midterm or a couple weeks later, and we're like, oh, wait, that's not going to work anymore. And we do want to be able to make adjustments on it. So yes, the short answer to your question, Heather, is can we make updates or adjustments on it is yes. And we actually do encourage you to, as well as the student, obviously, if and when that needs to happen. So that's another beauty about this system, is that we can go in and make any adjustments that we need to, because as all of you know, even if you haven't had a student before, life changes, you know, and what we thought in August could happen, maybe in October, it's not going to happen anymore, or it needs to shift or adjust. So yes, we can go in and make changes to it. Okay, so when the student is filling out their behaviors, we really encourage those SMART goals. So is it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely? So we really want them to write it in a way that makes sense, that is active, and that they can actually accomplish. So we just want to give you an example here. So on competency 1, so remember this is the ethical and professional behavior. This is just an example. So on competency 1A here, it is about making those ethical decisions, applying the NASW Code of Ethics. So a couple of examples that we have here are reviewing the code, reviewing agency policies, and doing that at the beginning of the semester. You know, that is timely, that is specific, that is something that is achievable. And then the one is, attending agency meetings throughout their internship. Then on competency B, we have the option of they need to use reflection and self-reflection to manage those personal values. And so the examples we have here is journaling each week to reflect on those experiences as well as their reaction to those experiences, and discussing that with their supervisor, how that has challenged them, how they can work through that type of thing. So, staying very behavioral. Okay, let's see. So someone else just messaged me, they have to leave too, and I will talk about COVID here shortly, but unfortunately COVID is starting to jump up again as we see. So we'll be sending, like I said, we'll be sending out the video, so anybody that needs to catch up, we can do that. All right, so your rubric for the SLP. So this is going to come into play when you're doing your evaluation at midterm and final. So one of the things that it's really important with a student, obviously, is to see where are they at, where, how are they learning, where are we at in the process. So these are the scores that you will use at midterm and final. One is, unacceptable. The student has not met this expectation, we're not there yet, or we really need to change the direction we're going in with this. 2 is developing, 3 acceptable, and then 4 and 5 is those, commendable, exceptional, that they're doing really, really well with those things. Now, really, at midterm, we expect to see those kind of 2s and 3s, that they still have half of their internship to go. They really shouldn't be at 4 and 5 at that point. At final, we want them to be at 4 and 5, but it's okay to be on those lower ranges at midterm because they still have half of their internship to go. There's also the option of not applicable. We hope that you don't have to use that very often, but on occasion that happens, especially at midterm, that, oh, we haven't gotten to that yet because that's coming up, that project's coming up in November, or, something like that. Or it might be that situation that we were talking about earlier that, oh, we thought that was going to work out and we now have figured out that's not. So that would be an opportunity for you to go in and make those adjustments. So I've already started talking about this a little bit, but, at midterm, really it's just a snapshot. It is where are they at right this second. And like I said, that's where it is perfectly okay and expected really for the intern to be at 2s and 3s at that moment. A 5 would indicate that they're ready to walk out into that field and be a professional social worker, and we don't really expect them to be at that yet. So it's okay, not to have those 4s and 5s right there at midterm. And like I said, if there are any NAs, just make sure to address it. It's okay if there are. Now, we don't want any at final because they do need to meet all of these competencies. But at midterm, if there's some NAs, that's okay, as long as we address it. What is the plan? Do we need to change anything? Does anything need to be modified? Of course, at your midterm as well, if there's any issues, we need to address those. Now, this shouldn't be the first time the student has heard that, because we talked about earlier, addressing in the moment and things like that. But it is a great opportunity to have that conversation of, remember we've talked about that you've been late some, or that you need to put your cell phone away more, or we need you to be a little more assertive in meetings, or, whatever it happens to be. It's a great opportunity to have the student, the instructor, and the agency supervisor all in the room together if there's anything like that that needs to be discussed and shared. And of course, providing any kind of feedback for them to improve and get those 4s and 5s at final. So this is just a little screenshot of what that'll look like. Again, this is Tavera. So their tasks will be typed in here. And this red box here is where you get to put in your score, and you also have the opportunity to type something in if you need to make a comment about that particular section. So at midterm, we're also going to ask you about the students' professional skills. So internship is obviously a time to grow and practice their social work skills, but we also want them to grow as a professional, as a coworker, as someone out in the community in the professional world. So we're also going to ask you about their workplace skills. And so this will be general things like, you know, are they dressing appropriately? Are they coming to work on time? How is their interaction with coworkers? Are they using their supervision appropriately? Things like that. This is something we've added a couple years ago, and it's actually been really helpful that this feedback has been really valuable because some of our students actually some of our students have a lot of life experience. You know, they've had other jobs, you know, they may be a non-traditional student, things like that. Some of them haven't. Some of them haven't been in the work world at all. You know, I have a lot of conversations with students about, I don't know how to make a professional phone call. I've never used a copy machine before, you know, little things like that, that they just don't know and haven't had those experiences. And so internship sometimes is their first exposure to those things as well. And so this has been a really valuable tool for us that we've added to help students along with that piece of their skill set as well. All right, so their final. Of course, at this point, you know, they're almost done. We hope that they've mastered these competencies. So we really very much do expect to see 4s and 5s. Again, like I said, by the time that May rolls around, these students will be our colleagues. And so we want to feel comfortable, you know, with them being our colleagues and with them, you know, working right alongside with us. So we are expecting them to be at those higher levels there. So this is what your final will look like. Again, their tasks will be typed in here. Your previous midterm rating will be here. And then of course you can add in your score and any commentary that you would need or want to for the final. Just a note for the midterm and final, we do typically schedule an hour for those. But, you know, if there's no major issues, typically those last about 20 to 30 minutes. The big thing here, as long as everything is covered, you know, have we gone through everything? Have we discussed everything that we need to? Is all the paperwork completed? Then that's fine. So just a note there so you know kind of how to schedule it. Yes, Kathleen, absolutely. When we send that email out, one of the links or attachments that I'll have for you are the slides. So I appreciate you asking that because I know I'm someone that likes to have a reference point. So we will send those out to you guys, hopefully later this week or on Friday. So. All right. So a quick note about signatures. You know, we've talked a couple times now about those signatures and how important they are. You know, these documents are like any other document, you know, out in the professional world. If it's not signed, it's not valid. So those signatures are very important. They will be posted through Tavera. But again, you'll get an email saying, hey, we need your signature, and you can click on it and get to it that way. Now, just a note about that as well, if you want to go into Tavera and, you know, you will have your own logon and things like that, you absolutely can do it and do it that way, but you absolutely can just run it all through your email as well. So it really depends on your comfort level, what you have time for, etc. All right, so as far as grades go, so a lot of times agency supervisors will say, you know, you guys have the scoring and you'll help us evaluate for the midterm and final and all of that. But then it becomes like, oh, you know, do I have to grade this student? And the grading really is the faculty's responsibility. So if that's a stressor to you at all, please know that that is not your responsibility. The faculty looks at all of the things that have happened during internship. Of course, your feedback is extremely valuable and important, and it does play into that grade. But that final responsibility is not on you, because the students also have homework assignments that they'll be accomplishing, of course, their ethical and professional behavior in the classroom as well as at internship. Have they been able to synthesize the coursework and practice together? And so it's very much more of an overall evaluation with your input included in that. So problems. Of course, we hope everything goes smoothly and you get the most wonderful student and there's no issues. However, sometimes this can occur. And so we want you to have your tools and resources if this were to come up. Prevention is absolutely best. But if something does arise, please address it as soon as possible. The earlier, the better. Address it directly and honestly, just like we would want to address with ourselves. And really, honestly, what we have found is that most students are completely unaware of whatever they've done, that's an issue. Most students, once we've addressed something, they're like, oh, okay, and they turn it around. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but most of the time that does. And please do document anytime anything comes up so that we have a record of it. And if it becomes something that, this stage of the process, you addressing it doesn't correct it, absolutely feel free to get the faculty field liaison involved. We are a team with you guys. We include you in our team. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us for any support or just something that you feel like we would need to know about. And we can assist with addressing any kind of issues. If it becomes an even greater issue or it's a really important or large issue, the field team may get pulled into that as well, myself or Bonnie. Of course, any immediate concerns we want you to address are attendance or lateness issues, any policy or ethics violations, and honestly, just if the student has been resistant to feedback or to the learning process, we need to know that right away. Just some examples for you is, this isn't an exhaustive list by any way, but if there's any kind of violation of any kind of agency policies, we need to know about that. If there's, chronic attendance issues with confidentiality, those type of things. If they're simply unable to cooperate with the learning process, or if they're unable to meet those learning expectations, and absolutely if there's any unethical conduct, we do not, there is no tolerance for that. So if there's any kind of issues with physical or verbal assault, violation of drug or alcohol policy, sexual misconduct, violation of code of ethics, those are absolutely things that we need to address right away. You will also get a link to the field manuals, and that is a lengthy read and a lot of information, but you will get a link to that so that you can visit any of those sections if you would like to see, kind of exhaustive lists and things like that. So really overall, we have a responsibility to educate the students, of course, but we also have a responsibility to our clients and to the social work profession at large. And so as the field supervisors, you're helping us move these individuals from the partying students over here and to the professionals over on this side of things. We want to ensure that our profession is as strong as it can be. And, like I've said several times today, these individuals will become our colleagues. And so we have an opportunity to train them to be good, positive colleagues. And so we do encourage you to ask yourself through this process, would I hire this person? Would I want to work next to them? Because that's really the goal. That's what we're going for. So we want to help move these interns from student to professional. All right, so on to some frequently asked questions before we wrap up here. The amount of hours that students need to collect. So our fall BSW students have a requirement of 150 hours total. This is about 10 to 12 hours a week. In the spring, they do 300, so double that, 20 to 22 hours a week. The summer students do 425 hours, so that is about 30 to 35 hours a week. And then our clinical students do a fall spring placement. It's 600 hours total, 300 each semester. So they're also at that 20 to 22 hour a week. average. So the reason it's, 20 to 22 hours is the minimum in those, 15 weeks for the semester would be 20 hours. We really do encourage students, though, to have a cushion. And so that's why we say 22. That way, if they end up getting sick, their car breaks down, they have a child that's ill, something like that, that they have a little bit of wiggle room, that they didn't just lose a whole chunk of hours because of life happening, kind of thing. All right, so when can students intern? Basically, anytime the university is open, the student can intern. So we have the dates here broken down by semester for you. If the university is closed, the intern cannot do any kind of hours. And the reason that is because of liability. Our liability is linked to the university physically being open. And so if we're closed for a holiday, a weather event, something like that, they cannot collect intern hours. So this handful of dates here are the dates that they cannot intern. So of course, Labor Day, Thanksgiving break, winter recess. And we do have one staff holiday in the spring semester, and then Memorial Day, Juneteenth, and 4th of July for the summer. So just keep those dates in mind, that the students just simply are not allowed to collect any hours on those days. We do have some dates, though, and this gets a little confusing for students sometimes, that we don't have class, but the university is open. So we have a couple of assessment days, fall break, MLK Day, spring break. They don't have to do intern hours those days necessarily, but those are some cushion days sometimes too, that students will want to do hours, that they are allowed to, even though we don't have any classes. So what if my intern doesn't complete their necessary hours? That is absolutely part of what they have to do. Those hours are a minimum. They've got to complete that minimum number of hours as well as their competencies. So one thing that we do is we actually stop intern hours the week before the semester is over. So that last week of the semester is finals week. And so they do have that week as a little bit of wiggle room if they need it. We hope that they don't, because we want them to focus on their finals and get ready for the next step and all of that, but it is there for a reason. So we do have that week as wiggle room. So if they have 10 more hours to complete, or something like that that's doable, that's totally acceptable, that's fine. If, however, it's more than can be accomplished in that extra week, you will need to get with their faculty field liaison to see if you can come up with a plan and kind of how to move forward. This is a good question as well. We get this from a lot of agencies. Is the student allowed to do anything outside of our agency to count for hours? And the answer is yes, as long as you approve it. So for example, maybe there's a really great training that's coming up that some of your other employees are going to, that would be relevant to the work that you're doing at your agency. Absolutely, they can go to that, they can count the hours, again, with your approval. Or maybe there's an agency that you get a lot of referrals from, or that you work with a lot, that it would be really beneficial for the student to go and tour for the day, or to shadow someone or something like that. Completely appropriate. If it's something that you feel like will be valuable to their learning and to their SLP and to their competencies, as long as you're okay with it, we're good, that's fine. And of course, if any questions ever come up with any of that, talk to your liaison, reach out to myself, Bonnie, or Elizabeth. We'd be happy to discuss that with you. So we talked about this a little bit already, but just this is some more details for you. So who is allowed to supervise which students? So for our generalist students, for our BSWs, the supervisor must hold a BSW degree, have a license, whether that's LBSW, LSW, LCSW. We do want them to have 2 years post their BSW degree of experience and 1 year in their current position. And then of course they get certified by the field education office. MSW is similar, have to have an MSW degree. We do need that clinical license in place though to supervise a clinical student. So they have to have an LCSW, 2 years post MSW experience and 1 year in the current position and certified by our department. So as far as safety goes, one of the requirements that CSWE has for us as a university is we do have to provide safety information to our students. We actually do this during their orientation. And so we go over quite a bit of safety information for them, personal safety, safety in the office, safety out in the community, and for their personal health and well-being. We also provide them with a self-screening that hopefully assists them in assuring, am I ready, am I healthy, and am I able? As we talked about earlier, field is that signature pedagogy, and it's so very important that if they are not in a good space to complete field right now, we don't want them to. You know, if they need to take a semester off, or there's other things that they need to address before they go into field, we really do want them to do that. We also have a waiver that our legal department has them sign so that they know what they're getting into and agreeing to. We also provide them with an emergency event guide that just helps them overall prepare for internship. And we've also included some telehealth and distance safety features in there because of this little thing called the COVID pandemic that we've been living through. So, and there's also behaviors, expectations, and preventative measures. So as far as the agencies and faculty, we have an emergency event guide for all of those individuals as well, another attachment to your email. And it really just kind of goes through some suggestions on preparing students and what they need to know safety-wise for your particular organization. Of course, if there's any telehealth or distance opportunities that they need to know about, because the safety measures differ some for that than they do in face-to-face. And then just recommendations and measures. So I was really hoping I could delete this slide this year, but as we know, we cannot. As of right this second with COVID, as you know, all of you are living in the same world that I am. We know that the numbers have gone up again and that it is here to stay. USI's kind of approach to this is we are, as a campus, we are not currently, excuse me, I apologize. We do not currently require COVID vaccinations. We do very, very strongly encourage it, and students, faculty, and staff can get free vaccinations on our campus, but they are not required. However, if your agency requires it, students do have to follow your policies, whether it's a COVID vaccine, a TB test, a drug screening, a flu shot, whatever it happens to be. Whatever your policy is, the student has to follow that policy, even though it's not USI policy. So just so you're aware of that. We currently don't have any mask requirements or plans to change to a virtual format or anything like that for the 2022-2023 school year at this point either. However, USI has been very good about following CDC guidelines and making sure that our students, as well as our faculty and staff, are safe. And so if for some reason, life is unpredictable, that we need to move to any of that, and if any of that happens through USI's campus, we will absolutely keep you abreast of that situation. If for some reason on your side of things, again, if that's the whole world or your agency or that student, if alternative or remote activities come up as something that's needed for your particular student, and you don't have any of those, for better or worse, we've lived through this and have had to do that for the past couple years. So if you need any help brainstorming what those activities could be, or certain examples, or you would like us to help monitor that, let us know and we'd be happy to help walk you through that process. You have survived. So any additional questions that have not been covered yet? I will take this opportunity to say thank you. We cannot do this job without all of you, and our students couldn't graduate and be the amazing social workers that they're going to end up being without all of you volunteering your time to do this. So we very, very much appreciate our partnerships with you and the time and energy that you put into this, because we know that it does take some significant time and energy, and we really, really do appreciate it. And I know the students do too. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, issues, concerns. Like I said, we work as a team, so any of us would be more than happy to help you out. If for some reason the person that you get doesn't know the answer, we'll elevate it to a different person that will know the answer. So let's see, I just got another chat. So as far as CEUs go, if you have not put in your name and email address yet into the chat, please do so. That's how we are going to get you guys your CEUs this year. We're not going to do the link with outreach and engagement. We're going to provide them with a list of names and email addresses, and they will send you your CEUs for participation today. So you will actually get, you will get 1.5 CEUs for participating today. So we appreciate that. That's our little thank you gift. I know it's not a lot, but we all have those CEUs to collect each year. So we are more than happy to provide that for you. And like I said, we appreciate the service that you give us. So any questions, concerns, anybody nervous about Tavera, anything like that? Okay. Well, I will leave you guys to it to conquer the rest of the day. Again, if you need anything, please reach out to us, let us know, and we'll be seeing and talking to all of you soon. So thank you.